Hi everyone, this is Cheryl and welcome to my sewing room. I'm going to demonstrate how to take panel fabric like this and turn it into a table runner. So let's get started. Panel fabrics can be a little tricky to work with because they're never printed straight and it's hard to get them all to be squared up to the same size. So no matter if you're just making a placemat out of each one of these or if you're turning it into a table runner, you still need to try to square them to about the same size so that everything will line up, especially if you're making the table runner. So I'm first going to just do a very rough cut. I'm just going to start cutting this little border print fabric off. Then I'm going to go down the middle of these. So try to get in the middle as best you can and cut. And you would continue doing it on the next one and then go across this way and go right down the middle. After you do your rough cut, now you want to do your final trimming to get it squared to one size. So what you need to take the time to measure this panel piece to see what it comes out to. The goal is to get them all to the same squared size. So it looks like I might be able to get these all squared to 11.5 inches square. So you want to center your 12.5 inch square ruler on here. And here's my 11.5 inch line here and along up here. And that's what I'm centering my ruler over. So I've kind of got it centered here. And I'm going to go ahead and do my cut. And then I'm going to cut this edge here. Now you're going to turn the block, pick up this corner over here and bring it over here. Now take your two previously cut edges along here, place it on the 11.5 inch line and get it all lined up. Really take your time because you don't want to have to keep shrinking this block and making it smaller and smaller. Going to go up here just a little bit more and then cut this side and then this side. Now if you're making the table runner, you've got to get all your blocks to the same size. Here's a little diagram of my table runner. Here are the squares. I'm going to use 5. So when you're counting your sashing pieces that you're going to need, mine are going to need to be 11.25 inches long on all of the sides. So when the squares are laid out, you have one at the beginning, one in between each square, and one at the end. Then on each side of the square, you will need sashing pieces. So I'm going to cut out 16 because that's how many I need. So I'm going to show you how to cut out 2.5 inch wide sashing strips. And out of each one of the sashing strips, I'm able to get 3 pieces that are 11.25 inches long. I'm going to use 2.5 inch wide sashing strips around the squares. So to cut your sashing, fold your fabric with the selvage edges together and straighten out this edge here because mine's really crooked. So I'm putting it on my ruler on one of the lines on the table here. That's why I love these long, big, large cutting mats. It makes it so easy to cut. All right, so now I'm going to go over every 2.5 inches and cut strips. Now it's going to depend on how long you want your table runner as to how many strips to cut. So here's how you cut your first strip. So keep going across every 2.5 inches, cutting out the number of strips that you think that you are going to need. And here is how you would count the number of squares that are going to be up in all of the corners. So I'm going to count it by 2. So you're going to need one here and there. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So you're going to cut out 12 2.5-inch squares. So cut your strips out first, lay the strip out, cut the selvages off, and continue cutting 2.5-inch squares out of that strip until you have 12. Then lay out all of your squares in the order that you want them on. Then on the opposite sides of each of the squares, stitch a sashing piece on. So bring front sides together, stitch 1/4 inch, press your seam, and then press on top, and all of your seams will go out towards this strip. Your other sashing strips, you'll need 6. Stitch your squares, your 2.5-inch squares, on each end. Press the seams on the back side. Then press the seams going towards the strip. Begin putting those sashing pieces on your first block. So you'd stitch one on one side and go to the other side and put it on. Then put on the second block. Then add the next sashing piece. Add the next block and keep going on down until you have the last of the sashing all stitched on. When you're putting these sashing strips on with the squares, you want to make sure you match the seams. So the seam on the top is going in the opposite direction than the seam on the bottom. And place pins to hold those while you are stitching, because your fabric can shift and then things will slip and slide and not match up. Then after you've stitched that 1/4 inch seam, then you're going to press this seam on the back side and unfold and press this seam towards the sashing strip. All of the seams are pressed towards the sashing strip. Now you're ready to layer your fabrics. So you want to create a piece of fabric that's long enough to cover the back side of the table runner. Some people just stitch different pieces of fabric together to create one long piece. That's really up to you. So once you've got it created, you take the front side of the fabric and place it down. Take the cotton batting and place it on top. Then place your table runner fabric on top of that. You'll notice that my fabric for the back and cotton batting is about 1 inch or so wider on each side of this table runner. And I do that because while you're doing quilting stitches, sometimes the fabric shifts a little bit. So you want to make sure you've got all the edges covered. Then go ahead and scatter either safety pins. If you don't have safety pins, you can use straight pins and scatter it all over to hold all the layers together. And then you're ready for your quilting stitches. When you're doing quilting stitches, I recommend you use a walking presser foot. And you can get these on the internet. You can go to Amazon.com, enter the model of your sewing machine, and then say walking foot, and a variety of options will come up. I've seen them for as low as $20 on up to maybe several $100s. So it all depends on your sewing machine. If you have a really high-end expensive machine, the more expensive the presser foot is going to be. Here are some suggestions of quilting stitch patterns. You can just do straight lines going side to side and then from one end of the table runner to the other. You can also go corner to corner. You could go at a diagonal and do a pattern like that. You can also use the serpentine stitch or other quilting stitches that you might have on your machine. And you can do the same thing. Go side to side and then from one end of the runner to the other. You can do this on a diagonal pattern, which is what I use most of the time. And if you wanted to, you can just do a single no crisscross rows of a serpentine stitch. You can just do going from one direction corner to corner. After your quilting stitches are done, then you want to trim the excess fabric off the back and the cotton batting and trim it right to the edge of your table runner fabric. So just place a long ruler there, make sure it's nice and straight, and begin trimming all of this off. So you would go around all four sides and trim it off. I've just put the quilt binding on, and if you need instructions on how to put on quilt binding, then click on the link in the upper right hand corner of your screen, and that video will give you very detailed instructions on how to do your binding. Well, here it is. It's all done. This was a really easy project to do. Now, if you're interested in doing other table runners and table linen projects, then go to the end of this video where there's a green screen and click on the links. If you enjoyed this video, please click on thumbs up. Also, click on share to share this video with your friends. And if you haven't subscribed yet, click on that red subscribe button down there in the lower right hand corner of your screen. Don't forget to enter your email address and click on that little bell notification so that you receive emails about my latest video. I'm Cheryl. I'm so glad you came to my sewing room. I'll see you next time, and happy sewing!